Cool.
How are you guys doing?
You doing okay?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm nervous.
I know. I am too. But it's but in a weird way.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cami Chaos, and we're experiencing some technical difficulties this episode. So please just bear with us. And this over here,
Hi, I'm Rick Tarosi. I'm likely the cause of the technical difficulties, but I'm also your co-host on Mildly Interesting People.
So you admit it. This is your show too.
And or maybe I'm just producing, I don't know. But as a mildly interesting person, which I can admit, Cami and I always feel the obligation to bring somebody far more interesting to join us for a conversation so that you have somebody wildly interesting to not only meet, but to learn from. And yet again this week, we've managed to find somebody incredibly interesting. Cami, who is our guest this week?
This week we have the first fan of Mildly Interesting People, which is weird to say. It's super weird to say. I'm super excited.
We weren't even fans before.
We weren't prepared for someone to like us.
No. Yes.
And yet it happened. So I will tell you a story. Rick and I were sitting back enjoying YouTube in the evening, as people often do, especially when they have a podcast on YouTube, because you got to dial in the metrics and
the algorithm,
fancy lingo, algorithm. Yeah. I don't pretend to even care about that. Rick cares and gives me very specific explanations. Anyway, so we're watching the YouTube, we're working the algorithm, and we see this video pop up from this person who's a fan of ours and who we have become enamored with because he's just so kind and nice and wonderful. And I'm like, hey, look, he's got a video on how to set up your Roku. That seems entertaining because that's way back, right? So we click it on, we're watching, and I'm a few seconds into the video, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening with my brain, but I'm looking at it, and I'm like, Rick, do you see what I see? And Rick is just like, phew. And I'm like, is he wearing the shirt with your face on it? He's wearing the shirt with your face on it. And yes, indeed, folks. Our guest today was wearing this shirt with Rick's face on it. So I introduce you to our first fan, someone that we are incredibly proud to have on this show and love communicating with day in and day out. Mahesh Raj Mohan. Welcome. You. Finally, welcome to the show.
Finally. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm, really like what you guys were doing with the show. And, I could tell you were putting a lot of thought into it when you started back in January. And
January, yeah, early this year. Yep.
Yeah, and I knew it was, you both started as kind of more like a hobby and you didn't want it to be a job. And what I thought was really cool about it was, it's you're both doing the Portland aggressively humble thing, which is, I think you guys are very wildly interesting personally, and a lot of people do too. But you're keeping that as your mission statement, and it's adorable, and I love it, and never change it. But your conversations that you have and the people that you have on are just from a complete spectrum, like all over. They're not necessarily Portland based. They're from all over. And it's a really great deep dive into what they do, from philosophical questions to just sort of more questions about, likes and dislikes. And it's just this whole spectrum. And I just think the world needs more like that. And I was really happy to support it and to make sure that you both knew there was support. And to be consistent about it, because I think consistently showing up is very important for anything. And the
hardest part. Consistency is the hardest part. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Especially these days. And it's but it's just something I was like, I want them to know that that if it's me, sometimes if there's one person commenting, there's 10 or 100 people who feel the same way, but maybe for whatever reason they don't want to say something. And I've been that person before too, where there's always someone out there saying something. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to say it too, because I'll, So I always am like, I'm happy to just go in there with the time codes and the timestamps and on comment on every single long form video and some of the short form. I like doing it, and I just so you all know that this is a consistent source of support, to continue doing it. So
we feel that. Also, you are known as the time code king in our home. So
that's right. Yeah. Anybody needs anybody to do chapters on their YouTube videos, I suggest you offer it as a service, because you're amazing.
So thank you. Yeah. I love it. And I love that. I love that YouTube lets you do it. So
yeah. All right. So my first question is you've been on YouTube longer than we have. Tell me about getting your start on YouTube. Tell me what inspired you to start a YouTube channel.
Sure. I think I was interested in doing different types of content. I've been doing written content and working with the Google algorithm for years and years and watching it change. And to see the video aspect was kind of interesting, and to see like what kind of content might work. And as you both know, being kind of with startups in both your backgrounds, there's always that problem solution statement. So there was this massive problem I had in the end of 2019, where I had prepaid a year of Disney Plus and only belatedly found out that the television I used to watch, which was from 2008, would not be compatible. And neither was my Blu-ray player. That wasn't compatible either. So I had to, it was awful. And so especially because it was not just, there's lots of people in my household depending on this work.
Issue.
It was.
Yeah. Marvel, Disney, give me the content. Come on.
Exactly. And so I had to find a workaround, and there was this little thing called the Apple AV Lightning adapter. And it turns out, it'll let you watch and whatever you want to stream, as long as you just need an HDMI cable, and it can be whatever, as long as the TV's got a port for it, you're good. And so I got it, I used it, I was able to watch it. I was a hero in my house, and I thought, I'm like, I can't be the only person with this problem. And so I made a video about it, and it just blew up right off the bat. And that was cool. The problem is that the problems began, right along with it. People were like, this doesn't work. And they were accusing me of stuff like, you're a liar. You didn't show it working. And I'm like, why would I make a video and lie? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, so, I'm the eldest child in my family out of a family of two. And so I'm very responsibility oriented. So I'm like, I better fix this. And so I start going on Reddit threads. And then when the pandemic hit, I had a lot of extra time on my hands to make this content. So I started making like, here's how you fix the problem. And, that would solve some issues, but not others. And people were like, I still have a problem. So I'm like, okay, let me come up with a video saying, let's all crowdsource a solution. And then it was like, it just kind of became an issue. Like there was this it was just niche. It just became this ridiculously narrow niche. And it was just a death spiral. I'm like, I can't making these videos for the rest of my life. So I finally found a way to kind of like put an end to it just recently. I'm like, okay, this is the ultimate video. If you still have a problem, and I went and put all the tech support information in like on there and said, please contact these people. And it was nice because I was able to kind of tie into some of the stuff I do for a living. And I was able to talk about things like technical debt and, to show like my clients, like, look, I actually, I'm using what I learned from you, so that was kind of cool too. So anyway, yeah.
YouTube. YouTube. So, I mean, anybody who's ever started a YouTube channel or even just started watching YouTube is immediately bombarded with folks like, here's how you grow on YouTube. And they're 99.9% of devices, niche down. Just create a space that's so possibly small that you own. So, is there a way to niche down too far?
Too far?
That's one of the questions. And then the follow-on question is, how do we get from hacking Disney Plus on old devices to a shed, a beautiful shed, mind you, and a great playlist and amazing content? But that's I
That's a
would
jump.
love to have you bridge that or give us
Yeah.
the kind of intuitive leap there.
So yeah, the basement part was that YouTube has that 1,000 subscriber threshold, and if there was like, if it had gone to 1,000 right away, I would be like, oh, I'm definitely onto something. I'll keep making these. But it was just it was very incremental growth, and I thought I I don't know. It's like I don't even I can't figure out another way to like talk about this very very like highly specific subject. Oh, so that was it. That was like, okay, so I'm like, yeah, it was like there. I think it is true. You can just destroy a subject and where there's nothing left to talk about. And the shed thing came across for. At first, it was more like, I'm not going to make this video about the shed. I'm most definitely not. I'm not going to film this because it's a longer story, and it kind of goes back to like my childhood, where if you gave me a piece of paper and a pencil and a straight edge, I still wouldn't draw a straight line. Like, it was not. I mean, it was like my parents would look at it and go, what? I can't believe that. And so
I can't believe I'm not the only one.
It's nice to hear that. I appreciate you saying that, because it's like, because you do feel kind of alone when you're like, I can't. And so anything to do with, to be like, handy or build anything, and or if someone would bring up, and I think this has come up in a previous show too. So I think if anyone would be like, oh, I really want to do this, and my folks would be like, well, it requires math, and I'm like, oh, never mind. And so it was like, so those two things, like, eventually eventually I came to a point in which, ironically, I think this is the actual true ironic thing, where I'm working I'm working with people like clients who are like not just like postdoctoral math. They're like so far beyond postdoctoral math, and I have to find a way to like write about it intelligently, which is kind of interesting. So I'm like, okay, so I clearly can understand this, which is good. And second, I was watching a YouTube on a video. Well, first of all, I had this old shed in my backyard, and it was falling apart. It was falling apart to the point that, my family was like, they called it the spider shed, and they would never go in it. And the door was busted in the front; it wouldn't close. And so I asked a contractor, I'm like, "Hey, can you just like fix this door for me?" And he's like, "Well, let's just build you a new shed." And he's like, "They're easy to do, and I can make it up real nice." And I'm like, "They're easy to do." And then I watched
How
this.
easy?
I know. I was like, "How easy?" And I watched this video. It was at the end of 2020, and
oh, so this was pandemic thinking.
yes,
sure.
it was most definitely, and YouTube understood it too before I think the rest of us did. And it was like, there's a lot of people with time on their hands, and so they put this video in there, and like, and it was good. That, I mean, it's like, I didn't at the time. I was like, I actually like, I didn't publicize it, but we were actually doing okay financially during the pandemic, and I always felt bad. I never wanted to talk about that, but at the time, because I was like, eh. But so I was kind of like, I felt good, and I was watching this YouTube video and about how to build a shed, and so I'm like, because I felt like, oh, I'm feeling pretty secure in general, um, and I watched it, and this guy talked about how when you're building things, when you're framing, you start like with everything is 16 on center, which is your studs are always 16 inches apart. And that just clicked along with the other contractor I knew saying they're easy. And I'm like, you know what? I'm doing all this weird math stuff every day. like, I wonder if I can do this. So unfortunately, like me and like, I don't know, like millions of other people had the same idea. So they just made a huge run on Home Depot and started driving the prices up. Like that's when that started. And so I went and I talked, I talked with, my family, and everyone was encouraging. And so I decided to source the materials and build it in the spring of 2021. And I started filming stuff, and I'm like, I'll film just parts of it, I'll just bits here and there. And then it started working. Like I mean, I'll back up a little bit. I bought plans, so that I did that properly. I didn't just go off, off YouTube entirely. That would have been a mistake. And so anyway, so I had plans, and I was able to, like, it just astounded me how it came to me so easily, and I was really surprised by that it wasn't as hard as I would have ever thought. And there were things that were really difficult. I mean, and in the video I talk about when I had to build the rafters or whatever, that was hard. And roofing was like, man, I'll never look at people when you see them roofing around the area. I mean,
Yeah.
my mad respect. So anyway, as when everything started coming together, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I do put this on YouTube. And so but it it was such that I didn't film everything, and some things didn't go off very well the first time I did it. It ended up okay, but like, I didn't want to show myself like really struggling, because I thought I just didn't feel comfortable with that. So anyway, I thought, as I amassed all the footage, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to show people the videos that helped me along the way? And so that's when at first I'm like, I'm just gonna link them, and then YouTube is like, you can only link 5. I'm like, God, curse you. So I came up with a playlist, and so I was like, and then I kind of was, at the time, I was the time code prince, before I got my game fixed up, and so I did it into YouTube
before you got the crown.
Before the crown. And so I timestamped everything so that people could watch the video, even though I would show it on screen. They could always go back to the description, go click on it for the parts, and I'm like, this way. I thought, this is not like other how to build a shed. And also, it's like, and there's tons of contractors, there's DIYers, there's all types of people, and they'll show you, like, they'll basically show you how to do every single part, and they'll do close-ups and everything. So I thought, if I can't do something like that, then these folks will. And it's been really great, because this has been sort of like a new, it's also niche. And also, I'm not 100% sure I can, like, keep that part of that thing going either for too long. But I've been sort of like doing the types of stuff like, here's what a real non-expert can do. Like, even like if you're just caulking the baseboard, like, I learned it from this guy, but here's somebody who does it, again, straight lines, not my thing. Here's how I did it. So, here's how to do it.
The first conversation we had about superfan Mahesh was Rick telling me about the shed building. And my first question was, does he have anything for raised beds? Which you don't. That's fine. But yeah, you've backed yourself into another little niche corner.
Yeah, and I've always wanted. I actually have a video of me taking a busted up raised garden bed apart, and I was going to upload that. Just here's how you take one of these that are all not. And I've always actually wanted to build a raised bed, because so it's like, that's something I've thought about. Like, it's to do it right is like, the people whoever built the raised beds that were there before didn't do it right. So it's like, it's really important to put, like, landscape fabric down first if you're going to do it, which I'm like, whoa, wow, look at the rot here. So, yeah,
I'll tell you, if you do that project, let us know. We'll follow along. We'll help you out.
nice.
If we have to build some, we'll do some filming. You can just tell us what to do.
Oh, great. Sweet. That's an awesome idea. I like it.
You can come over and critique our work. You'd be like, no, this is not. Watch this YouTube.
I can't draw a straight line, and that's bad.
I think I probably would I think we'd all learn from each other if we did that one. That would be like so. But yeah, I think it's good to it's the good thing that kind of came out of that situation which is still going on, the pandemic, or it's endemic now, I guess, is that people did things they felt maybe they couldn't do before. And I think that's, empowering people and especially like when this area we're all in, it's hard to actually find people to do some of the work that you need, so
right.
To learn how to do it yourself, it's like we're all kind of going back a couple of generations and doing like what, like both my grandfathers were very handy gentlemen. So,
yeah.
Yep. So, and I think something Cami and I have discussed quite a bit is there was for all the awful stuff that happened during the pandemic, one of the kind of like bright spots was this weird kind of like reset of production value or expectations. Like when you see your local newscaster, broadcasting from their bedroom and their cat and their kid breaking in, like it kind of brought the level down for all of us to kind of like the bar wasn't so high. And so if you had something to communicate, like I know both Cami and I felt more inspired to try things, and I think that's what part of this has been, was that inspiration was just festering. For you,
very true,
being a writer and not only writing for others but writing screenplays, writing for yourself, like I would just love for you to kind of describe your experience from the pandemic and what that did to you and your art form. I think so often we like to say, oh, you have to go through pain to be an artist. And the pandemic was definitely painful. So like what did that do to you and your chosen form of expression?
And I want to tack up kind of a follow along, because my next question was also pandemic related. You said something earlier, I know that we caught on recording, which was that you felt guilty because you were doing well financially during the pandemic. I was gainfully employed the entire time. I've been with the same company for a long time, and I experienced a lot of that guilt as well. So I want you to look at what Rick has asked you with that lens, but also we talked about earlier, which we didn't capture on recording, that you had struggles at the beginning of the pandemic. I'd love to touch on all of that while we're still in pandemic mode.
Yeah, absolutely. So creatively in the very beginning, I had to like kind of buckle down. I had to like just tune all this stuff out, because in the very beginning, it was definitely a struggle just across the board, because just with everything. And so it was very easy for me to shut the noise out and just kind of focus on kind of a long form creative projects in the beginning. And it was like, it just allowed me to focus better. And I think that's something that's kind of maintained itself the last 3 years. So it's like when things, because it's been such a peak and valley for, the whole time, is that you just refine that focus. And like when things just become overwhelming, because I was saying the other day how a lot of stuff you read online is designed to like get a reaction out of you, and not always a positive one. So it's okay to focus on your own stuff, And so I was creatively speaking, just very recently, actually, like in the very beginning of the pandemic, I was pretty productive, and then things got better, like, financially. And so then I had to like dump all my, that's what I tend to do. It's like, oh, great. It's like, I dump the creative stuff and like just do, and then I don't
work
all the time, constantly. And so, but so it's been, but again, it's like if you're, doing it for yourself, sometimes it kind of goes in peaks and valleys. So during the valley times, I'm able to just focus and kind of create, more, I guess it's, I guess in some ways it's kind of like, hobbyist or a vocation, although that's really in my heart of hearts, creative writing is what, I still want that to be my main, my main creative and financial,
you and me both, sir.
Yes. Right. So it's like, I mean, that's so, but in order to do that, it takes focus. And so I've been able to focus, a lot more, I'd say in the last year, to, produce the type, because it's, um, it requires not just like focus, it requires like kind of like letting sort of like the negativity, like if you're gonna have the negativity, just funnel it into the creative work so you could actually use it instead of letting it sidetrack you, which I think lots of people who are creative deal with. So I think it's just been more important for me to say, I'm gonna take this time out, and I'm gonna work on this because it is useful work, even if it's just useful for me. And I'm still, I mean, I've my work ethic is, a little bit too. I know this is really not. I don't mean this as a humble brag, but it's like sometimes it's a little too lasery, and so it's like people are like, "Boy, you got to like ease up," So it's like, and so I have to be told to like. It's like I'm always reminded of that scene in Aliens when Ripley has just rescued the Marines, and she's blasts through, and she's like going over, and Hicks has to come over, and he's like, Ripley, you're grinding metal, you have to ease down. It's like, and that's me. I'm Ripley. So, and so anyway,
I have two modes, and it's like full bore or I'm gonna take a nap. Those are my two modes. I
and I wish I could do the naps. But I mean, it's like that's it's a good thing to do. I'm glad you do it.
Well, to be fair, it goes a little over to the other side of it. It's either like woo, or I'm just gonna sleep for 3 months like a bear, and I'll see y'all later. So
it's grinding metal or sawing logs.
I could stand to find some balance in my life. So I very much hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and I can I can tell you guys are the mental and emotional wellness is not something you guys always just talk about. It's something you both live, which it's like that's another reason I like to watch you guys, because it's an affirmation for me, because I'm like, look, they're practicing it. It's like
We're trying.
Works. It's like man, you succeed, because it's like, not to be creepy, but I've like seen it over like the course of like a decade. So it's you guys are
that
really
wasn't. It's not creepy. We've been online in public, and you're totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
You're totally fine. But thank you. Yes, I totally. I have a friend who's a fan of the show, and she was like, I made some comments. Was that creepy? And it's like a little bit, but it's fine. Be creepy. I love you. Anyway.
We opened ourselves up to.
We asked for it, so, and I mean, like, don't be, if you're just being creepy because I'm not talking to you.
Yeah,
you're fine. Other people, don't be creepy. Just be creepy. He's enthusiastic, and it doesn't creep us out at all, because he's a long-term fixture of the Portland technology community and a solid human. So, please continue.
And so, I think hopefully it was a tripart question. So hopefully I answered it. Okay,
we made it super complicated.
That's okay. No worries. But I'm doing more, like I went ahead and like last year there was a great local designer, Bork Design, Leslie Bork, amazing graphic designer. She built my site, my personal site, maheshrajmohan.com. And so I've just started to do more writing there, and the type of writing that, and it's more not more nonfiction, the type of stuff that
Okay.
I used to see in, like, you know, film magazines, or, you know, those quarterlies you go and get that it's hard to find anymore. And I'm sure there's really great discussions about film and television all over the internet. It's hard for me to find a place, and it's like I just want to be able to, like, talk about the weird stuff in my head. And so I'm just making more of a concerted effort to focus on that as much as the other stuff. So
Good.
yeah,
That's very good.
Yeah, I think you will find both of us very encouraging of a return to blogging, especially with the like the crumbling of the social media worlds that
yeah,
seem to have taken all the oxygen out of the room for blogging. Like that was just an amazing point in time for both of us in this community when everybody kind of had their own blog
yeah, it
and
was
you had
great.
your feed reader and you'd learn from everybody and it was more long form kind of
I
content that
remember
you would
when
get.
I first started blogging, it was I was like, wait, I can just do this. There's like not a publisher I have to submit something to. I don't have to talk to anybody. I just say
Mhm.
whatever I want. And then I wound up on like these organizational blogs, like uh, Metro blogs and City blog,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
it was just I was like, you're gonna let me do this? Okay, that's fantastic. I'm gonna share my wackadoodle opinion, and you're just gonna publish it. Mm. Um,
Win-win.
yeah, it was fantastic, and I miss it. I deeply miss it.
Well, and you both had said, or I think it was one of the very first ones. You both said we started and abandoned blogs. We wrote like 5 posts at once, and then we just never post again. And I'm like,
Yeah,
man, that's like so me. It's like
yeah.
that's over the last 10 years. It's just I'll start it and I won't continue. So yeah, it's like, you know,
Well, there's that shame when you try to go back. You're like, oh, but I haven't posted in 6 months. I haven't posted in a year. I
yes,
haven't. And then you're like, no one's going to want it. And I'm trying to get to the point where I'm like, it doesn't matter what someone else wants. This is for me to do for myself.
exactly.
But there's still that weird like guilt. My
Yeah,
poor
because at some
abandoned
point
plant blog and my poor abandoned mental health blog.
because at some point that there's there's a real friction there between I'm doing this for myself and this is a medium that I can use to communicate what I want to communicate and then there's the interaction from others where you suddenly then well is this my thing or is this their thing or like who am
Right.
I exactly doing this for and so
Yeah.
that yeah
No, I hear it. No, and sometimes you get like random comments from like random people who, you're like, and it's just like if you want to, like, back, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if you wrote something politically and someone comments and wants to argue with you, it was different from us now, which is tremendously toxic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's still, it's like, like, who is out there reading this? It's like it's kind of, you do get weirded out, and I do feel the guilt of abandonment of it too. But there's times where when I did let something go, I'm like, it's because I'm like, yeah, I just gotta let this go right for now. And it's
Yeah.
and it's like, and it's okay. But also it's like, you know, if you have a good topic, or you have a good, it's just good to, like, even if you do it intermittently. That's how I feel about it. I'm like, if I do feel about it and I show up intermittently, that's okay too. So
Mhm.
I think that professionally, I read and write so much.
yep.
Like so much content comes into my head on a day-to-day basis for work. And I create so much internal content for work that at the end of the day, all I want to do is write. But I'm too tired because writing is that's my parents used to joke that I learned how to read so I could write. That was the only reason. And they're not far off because I was like scribbling little poems when I only could write like 5 words. And I would just use those 5 words over and over again in different combinations.
That's so cool.
And yeah, I wish I still like, I'm looking forward. I have a sabbatical coming up later this year.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I'm like, maybe I'll start writing again. Maybe I'll actually do something just for me and
You should
beautiful.
totally do that.
I'm hoping to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's a great segue to my creepy research that I always do on people.
Oh boy. You thought
So,
you were afraid that you were creepy. Let me introduce you to Rick.
I'll always be more creepy. So the thing that has amazed me, Mahesh, as a through line for you is you recognize very early a passion for writing and then continue to follow that through school. It's your profession. You expanded, like you've gone short form, you've gone long form, you've gone screenplays, you've gone like any number of ways of using language to express yourself. Can you take us back to very, very little, Mahesh, and like what was that spark that created the writer that we know today?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. And I wish I actually like Cammy's answer about writing poems with she only used 5 words. I think that's I wish my story was like that, because it's not. It's like I don't the spark was like it was like so I think it was like deeper in my brain, and like I would come up with stories and stuff. And my mom and dad would encourage me more, my mom. Um and when I was about 8 years old, it was in the 4th grade, and I think I just was like, I had a teacher, and Mrs. Bowers, Shirley Bowers.
Hi, Mrs. Bowers.
And yeah, I know. I wish I don't think she's with us anymore, but she's out there somewhere. And
hi, Mrs. Bowers.
so she she was encouraging too. And so it was like a whim at the time. It was like, you know what, I'm going to be a novelist when I grow up. And everyone was like, yeah. And even my dad, who was, very analytically minded, even he was like, yeah, do it. And so I was like, that's great.
You can't draw a straight line, so you might as well.
Exactly. It was like, well, words must be your thing. And so, that was their, and it's related to that, like, my folks, when they were like frustrated with me with math, would always say like, math is precise, because I would always I would just guess all kinds of numbers. So they just it was like, so I think that's support. And I got this like in 5th grade, there was like, they used to hand out these like little awards to people, and mine said budding author on it. And it was just like, it was cool. So all those things, like, kind of like they just sort of just grew and kind of like, went on each other. And so I just kind of just maintained it and held on to it. And so that's why I'm never like, I'm never discouraging to anybody, especially younger people. Like, I would never go out there and tell them, oh, how hard it is, because it's always, if ever I talk about it, it's only going to be my experience I'm talking about. And it's not an easy, like, I would, it's like, it's not an easy job to do professionally in any form, but it's like, that's true of lots of professions. And I think writing sometimes gets tarred with in the realm of, being unrealistic, which I don't think is a fair thing. And there's lots of, I think that there's lots of reasons why that is. And I think that could be its own podcast episode. But for me, it was like clear. It was like, I was just like, no, I'm going to drive to it. Even when I had a career counselor at age 18 say, what do you want to do for a living? And I said, I want to write. And right off the bat, he's like, do you want to eat? And you
it's not like you said you wanted to be a musician.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, it's just, even with all that, you just keep going, you keep pushing forward. You figure out how, you can, you figure out, like, how do people get published, so it's like, you go in and you look at, submission guidelines to, magazines. And I was 16 years old, and I wrote a short story, and I sent it off to, it was Isaac Asimov's science fiction magazine. And they used to give horrifying form rejection letters that were crushing. And and so I was collecting them from age 16 onwards, and you just keep going and going.
I'm hearing a lot of similarities between little Mahesh and little Cammy. And one of the things that I was always really interested in, curiosity was the future. And I think about it sometimes still. I'm like, we're living in the future. And there are things about the now that still feel like the future to me. But we don't have flying cars, and we don't have a robot named Rosie. I mean, we've got the Roomba, and it vacuums for us, but we still have to pick up the floor to let it vacuum.
I know.
So what did you think the future was going to be like when you were little?
Man.
Like, is there anything about the present that is like, yes, I live in the future for you?
For me, I think what we're doing right now, like I would have loved to have been able to do a video talk as a kid. Like if that had been something available to me back then, I would have just like, I couldn't even, we used to like, I was like, oh, if only I could see, you talking, on the phone. Like that is
crook and the,
yeah.
And
it's like, and it's the phone, it's not the same, and it's like this is cool. And I think that's a big one. I think I definitely, when I was little, I wanted there to be like flying cars. I would have loved that.
Yeah. Jetsons was my model for the future.
I think that video screens for sure. What else? I think, the electrification like of cars, like to say like, oh yeah, you can have a car that doesn't run on gas. I think like that's definitely like, that's kind of really cool. Or you can like have a power wall in your, in your garage if you wanted or something like that. That's very, most of the time I usually think about how, not in a good way, how it reminds me about the cyberpunk stories from the 80s. This future, it's like that was super accurate, and it's like, oh man, like what Sterling and Gibson were talking about, and or some of the other, Pat Cadigan and all, that's so, but that it's like, it's like from the sprawl to like the air quality and all that stuff,
they were major predictors of what our life is like. Not in a nice way. We've got some nice future things. Like I always take for granted my phone until we start recording, because we use our phones as our cameras. And so like I'm like, I can't look up anything in the world. Like my father worked in technology for the railroad, and they had like computers that were so big they wouldn't fit in this room.
Right.
That weren't as powerful as my phone. And so I spaced that one, but yeah.
I like, see, that's another one, is that like you can, the ability to search things, just like to have an answer for something that's just kind of idly on your mind, and to just be able to get that answer right away. I love that.
Remember when we had to write things down and go to the library?
There was this one horrible time I was like 18, and I was trying to find a bookstore, and like my teacher wouldn't use the real name for it. He kept calling it was called Full Circle Bookstore. And he kept saying, go to the Circle Bookstore. And I was like driving myself nuts going to the yellow pages looking for Circle Bookstore. And it's like, if I did that now in Google, it would be like, do you mean Full Circle Bookstore? Yeah. That's cool. I love that.
That is awesome. I do love that as well.
All
right. Rick, you had something.
Yeah, I had one thing that is a great transition into Cammy's favorite segment of the show, which is Mahesh has been kind enough to send mildly interesting questions for me to answer.
Yes.
So my one mildly interesting question for Mahesh, ahead of the standard mildly interesting questions, is
it's appropriate that he get a special question.
Oh man.
Marvel or DC, or Marvel and DC?
Oh, see, my knee-jerk reaction is to say Marvel because I'm a Marvel zombie from way back. But it really is and that's 13-year-old me coming out. It really is Marvel and DC, because in the early 2000s I started reading DC comics almost exclusively. But I mean, if we're talking and Superman was my first favorite hero. So, but comics, it was always I'm always going to have that loyalty to the comic book form, to Marvel. But for cartoons, I'm always going to have a loyalty to DC, because Challenge of
the Batman stuff was pretty good in the cartoon world.
Yeah, and Challenge of the Super Friends had a huge impact on me. So, and that
Teen Titans also as a later addition
Teen
to
Titans
the DC.
Go, even
Teen Titans Go is man, I'll watch that now. My kid is not even here, and I'm like, no, I still watch that. That's a good show.
Excellent. Well,
that's a great
thank
question.
you. And with that,
it's time for mildly interesting questions.
Yay!
All right, are you ready? You've seen them all.
Yes, I've had time to. If these are the same ones, I've had a lot of time to think about them.
We have decided to give you the same ones.
Oh man, I am ready.
All right. Favorite but least useful hobby?
I am an amazing desk drummer. I use the floor of wherever I'm at, and my keyboard, my mouse stand and everything, and I can mimic stuff and I'm yeah, I'm incredible.
Can you do Wipeout?
Yeah. And I always add the guitar parts too. So
nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Would you like to survive the zombie apocalypse?
Before I started watching these, my immediate response always would have been no, like some of the other guests. But knowing that the people that you would have on your team, including you, I would change my answer now to say yes, because I would like to survive in your group. Yes. So I would, yeah. But if this had been 2 months ago, I would be like, no.
All right. We have another recruit for the zombie apocalypse team, and this one's close enough. He's close enough, and he knows how to build a shed. Just saying, this is a useful zombie apocalypse knowledge
for us. Yeah, exactly.
All right. What is the last food that you photographed?
The last thing I photographed was something I had finished eating because my mom lives close by, and she will still make things for us, which is lovely. And that's so to prove that I ate it, I take a picture saying, "Look at how much I love this." Is she wants that evidence. So it's like I took a picture of something she made, but it was all gone.
Empty
so it's
plate.
Like a crime scene.
Yes, it was.
Scene of the food. Yes,
it was.
Okay, cool.
Empty plate. All right. What is the best season?
Fall.
Yes. Yeah. You have all the answers. And last but not least, magnets or stickers?
Oh, this is a tough one too, because I grew up being a sticker head, and stickers everywhere. And it's almost not quite as traumatized as what happened with Nick, what he did to his guitar. Although I'm pretty close to that, what I did to doors and walls. And so I like magnets. It's it's really tough but there's other people who I'm around who adore stickers. And so just for that person's sake, I'll say stickers.
Stickers, because you're a good and loving human. If it makes you feel any better, there are stickers with a little note card right by my front door.
Oh, nice.
To go out in the mail to you tomorrow.
Yay!
So.
Love it.
They were ready earlier, but we forgot to put them out for 2 days.
It happens.
We're really good at that.
No,
sometimes the mail carrier arrives earlier than we expect.
So, that happens. That's been happening a lot lately, actually. I think it's a Portland thing.
Yeah. I can't complain about good mail service. So
no.
All right, Rick. Do you have a wrap up for us? Is there anything insightful and witty you'd like to say?
Yeah. Yeah, insightful and witty. That's my
it actually is usually, kind of your brand. I'm sorry to tell you, that's kind of your brand. Grumpy, insightful, and witty. kind of your brand.
Okay, fine. So while I am not disappointed, is not the right word, but like just sorrowful about the loss of Mahesh's beard that I was hoping to get the chance to talk to. This has been a person that we've crossed paths any number of times over the past decade in Portland. Has always been an absolutely like joyful and creative individual that I've like had the opportunity to have random collisions with. It's just an incredible privilege to get the chance to just spend time with you, Mahesh, and I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. I can never thank you enough. Even if you went away tomorrow and were like, you mispronounced my name for long enough.
Please don't do that.
I'm done with you.
We would deserve it, but don't do it.
But don't do it. Just your support and encouragement and just being part of this entire process. It's an absolute pleasure to just have you here as part of the entire process. So from your comments, your support, your incredible time code capture, all of that stuff. I can't wait to have you over here to critique our shitty raised beds that we build. And thank you so much for spending time with us on the show. It was just incredible to have you here.
And there's something I need to say to the two of you is that the two of you have such a high level of emotional intelligence of anybody I think I've seen lately. Your EQ is just off the charts, and it's just a joy to watch not only how you are with your guests, but how you are with each other. Just the space you give to each other, how kind and loving, and it's like, you know, it's just you know, it's like major relationship goals. It's like, you know, you guys are really, it's it's just, I like it. I like what you're able to, how you're able to play off each other. I like, you know, like I said, the giving each other time to you know, be your best selves. And it's just, you know, I really like it, and I'm gonna continue to watch as long as this remains fun for the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go off camera and cry in a minute, but thank you. That was.
Get yourself a podcast co-host like the Cami Chaos podcast co-host or whatever I'm supposed to say there.
I don't know what you're supposed to say there.
I don't know either.
Yeah. But thank you. Kids. And one thing I do have to say, this afternoon, as I was preparing for the podcast, Rick came in and said, "Are you going to be okay being the only person without a beard?" And I said, "No, we should probably get me like a crocheted one or something." So when you popped up on camera with no beard, I was like, "Aha, sucker, Rick, you're the only one."
You know, you keep the beard as long as long as you. I remember what you looked like before it, because that was when we had our little drive-by by Whole Foods 10 years ago. But it looks amazing on you, and it's great. So you should, as long as you're happy with it, keep it as long as you want, cool. Man. Yes,
will do. I will hide behind it as long as I possibly can. Sure.
Mahesh, thank you so much. It has been an absolute joy.
And, thank you, as ditto. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for making time for me.